Hey guys, this is Mr. Lassard here, and this is Rob. And Rob, I'm so sorry, I forget your last name.
Just Rob is good enough.
Just Rob is good enough with RPG. RPJ, that's right. Guitar repair. And so I brought Rob my guitar here. We've got a little buzz on one of the strings, and it's just a little difficult to play. And so he's got a lot of experience. He's going to take a look at it and tell us what's going on.
Okay, first of all, the first thing you always want to check on a guitar is what's called the neck relief. That's how much bow is in the area between the 5th and the 9th fret. Easiest way to do it. Finger on the end, finger up by the nut, and press down at the 2nd fret. I don't know if you can see this, but there's too much bounce at the 2nd fret. And as you go up the frets, you'll see that there's more bounce. You know, the neck needs to be readjusted at the truss rod. If you've never done it, don't do it yourself. Bring it to somebody like me or somebody you trust. Other things I'm going to show is Mr. Lassard right now is we have to do what's called a fret dressing. The reason why we do that, and it's not something that most people can see, but after 50 odd years of doing this, I see it. So you can see it here. One of the reasons why you're getting the buzz, see how the top of the fret is shiny? That's where you've been bending your strings. Okay, the next thing you want to look at is, might not show up on film, is there's little divots in the fret.
Right.
And that happens no matter what when you're playing. So the easiest way to know whether you need to have a fret dressing is you look at your low E side of your string, and you'll notice that the top of the fret is rounded over. When you go up to your high end of the string, you will notice that it's not rounded over anymore. It's gotten flat. Now that's natural. It happens to every guitar out there. It doesn't matter whether it's a $100 guitar, $50 guitar, or a $50,000 guitar, which I've worked on. It's just a natural thing because the string metal is harder than the fret metal. The more you bend, the more you flatten what's called the crown. That's the rounding of the top. Now he brought this to me because his high E was buzzing. That's the buzz. Which tells me to look down at the saddle, and it's got a notch in it. You can't. You could try and film it, but you're not going to be able to see it.
Now that's actually a new saddle.
Right.
So,
But hear that?
yeah.
That's been the string has already notched it.
Okay.
That's again, it's an easy repair for me. Not something I recommend anybody to do on their own. I just take a little sandpaper, and I take some pencil lead. Dirty the top of the saddle, and you'll see where the divot is. And then all you're going to do is you're going to softly smooth it down slowly. I'll use a 220 grit, or I'll use a 600 grit, depending on how much material I have to take away. We're going to bring the action down on this because he'd like it to play a little faster. The other thing to notice, and again, I don't know whether this will end up on visible, but behind the bridge, we call it a belly. It starts to, everybody thinks it's humidity. It's not humidity, it's actually string pull and the age of the guitar. The older the guitar gets, because the way guitars are braced, it will get a belly. Just about every guitar I've handled, except for one brand, and I won't get into brands, will get this problem. It doesn't matter, again, if it's a $50 guitar or a $60,000 guitar, it's all the same. It's always going to end up being that way. If you're not sure, bring it to a repair person. Pick up the phone, call, talk. Before you let anybody touch your stuff, you want to interview them. You want to call around and see about other customers and other clients and what they think.
You've seen a lot of bad work in the past, I'm guessing.
I've seen so much bad work that it bothers me because it eventually hurts the good repair people. I've been doing this over 50 years. I started at a very young age. I got very, very lucky. The majority of people doing repairs these days are learning it out of a book, learning it on videos from different, repair people, or they're going to YouTube. All that stuff is great, but it only gives you knowledge, and you need to watch more than one video. The other thing I'm going to do on this guitar is, once I take down the frets a little bit, I'm going to have to re-notch the nut to lower that down. The other thing is I'm going to yell at your teacher about this. See how you got the low E string coming off the top?
Yes.
Not supposed to come off the top. It's got to come off the bottom like that one.
Okay.
And that one. You only need 2 to 3 winds on your wound strings. On your unwound strings, you need 3 to 4. You don't need to put a lot of string on there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tie a knot. Don't stack the string on top of the piece of string that's sticking out, and then you wind around that, and you wind it. It calls what's called a compression point, and your guitar won't stay in tune.
Mm.
The other thing, and this is what I pass on to every customer that comes to me, is learn to be soft on forming a chord. The more you press down, and you'll hear it, you hear how it goes sharp?
Yeah.
All you have to do is to get that string to seat on top of the fret.
Mm-hmm.
If once you've got that, you can hear that I'm pulling it sharp, and you'll complain that what they call intonation is out. It has nothing to do with intonation. And on top of all that, the harder you strum, the more you want to squeeze down on those chords.
Right.
Don't do it.
Right.
I tell everybody, practice the alphabet. You know, you just play the alphabet, strum soft. I haven't picked up a guitar today, guys, sorry. You play the alphabet and just get that first C down and strum soft. After you've got it comfortable like that, you want to start strumming harder, paying attention to your left hand, that you're not squeezing down. On average, it takes about 2 weeks to get this down. But what you'll notice is the one finger that you nobody ever uses, is you get now to use your pinky. And you can do stretches because you know that you don't have to press down and hard on it. And you can get all those notes and you get all those chords. If you're a jazz player, you need your pinky. If you're a rock player, you need your pinky. Blues players, you need your pinky. Gauge of strings is subjective. Your teacher here uses 12s. I use 14s. I grew up playing heavy gauge strings because I'm older than he is. I have very, very low action, and I have very, very little what they call relief. I don't squeeze down so I don't get a buzz, and I don't wear out my hands, but I like heavy gauge strings for the volume and the tone, mostly the tone that are heavier gauge strings. I just got into a discussion with somebody on a forum about putting 10s on an acoustic guitar, saying it's wrong. It's not. Whatever is comfortable, whatever will make you pick up your guitar every day and play it, practice, whatever it takes. You want to use 10s, great. You want to use 9s, if they make a set of 9 acoustic guitar strings, buy them, have them put on your guitar. Eventually, you'll start wanting to get a little heavier tone because the lighter gauge of strings, the more tone you lose. The higher your action, the more volume you have, but the lower your action, the more tone you have. And to me, though I hate pickups, I have pickups in all my guitars because everybody wants to play loud. So since I have to put a pickup in my guitar, doesn't really matter. You're plugged in. Your volume comes from that pickup. It does not come from your guitar. Your tone no longer comes from that pickup, from the guitar. It now comes from the pickup. And you'll feel so much better about doing things. But you should play for whoever's working on your guitar so you understand and they understand how you play. If someone won't answer a question or won't tell you what they're doing to your instrument, walk away, run, do whatever you have to do. You're not getting the services you deserve. I love guitars. I'm a junkie. I admit to it. I own every guitar I touch. And I warn people, it's my guitar, mess it up, and I beat you rapidly about the head with a stick. The guitar is mine for a year, and I'm not a stickler about that year. 2 weeks after I do the work, I want you to take a pad when you pick up your guitar and write down anything you notice. Because I don't read minds, and if it's written down, then we can go over it. Sometimes, though, it was said you should never say it. I was taught, sometimes it's your technique that screws up your instrument, and it needs to be corrected. And if you're willing to hear those things, you'll make yourself a better guitar player. Everybody has a different technique. Everybody plays differently. Everybody's fingers are different. There's no such thing as big hands or small hands. It's all about muscle. The more you play, the more you change the chords, the more you pay attention to what you're doing, the better player you're going to be. And you might not want to be a rock star or any of that other stuff, but it's the greatest stress reliever ever in the world, to sit down and play.
Yep.
Just pay attention to what you're doing. You run into an issue, don't ignore it. Write it down. Because Mr. Lazar might say, oh, okay, that's a simple fix. This is what you need to do technique-wise. And it's very important that you pay attention to that kind of stuff, because without it, you're wasting your time. Speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to question, what I'm doing, what your teacher is telling you to do. It's not being mean and evil. You have a question, and in all reality, there is absolutely no stupid question.
Absolutely.
The only stupid question is not asking it.
Right. Speaking of which, I do have a question.
Okay.
Here along the seam, I'm starting to feel, I don't know if there's anything wrong there, if that's just where the wood comes together.
If you look real closely, that is a dip in the finish. That is your center seam. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you'll notice that the lacquer or poly, whatever the stuff is as a finish, will actually form a crack that gets dirty. A lot of the times it's not actually through the wood, it's just in the finish. And how you test that is, you can put your thumb down on it. Don't press hard, just push your thumb down on it, and you'll feel actual movement in the wood. And once you can do that, then you put it to one side of the crack, press down on one side, and draw your finger across. If you can feel the wood separation, and then you release it and you don't feel the wood separation anymore, it needs to be fixed. And for me, it's an easy fix. It's all I do is take wood glue, a little water first, dampen it down so the glue will the water gets absorbed in the wood. Then when you put the glue down and press it, the glue gets absorbed by the water, which gets it further into the wood, and that's it. It's done. It doesn't need to be anything else. In this case, yes, you can feel where the finish is dipping. It's a normal thing that happens to guitars. It happens to, again, anywhere from a $50 guitar to a $60,000 guitar.
Right.
It's just paying attention. If you're not sure what's going on, bring it to your repairman.
And one last question. Yeah. I know you didn't want to mention any brands, but some of the kids may be looking to find a nicer guitar and so forth. Any advice on what they should look for, what they should avoid?
Okay, my favorite guitars, and I started playing the Sears Silvertone Archtop. And I bought my first real guitar after saving $69 to buy it. My brother and my sister had a party. My guitar got trampled. I went around to try to get it repaired. Nobody would repair it. I repaired it myself, just logically. It looks like garbage, but it still plays, and I still own the guitar. But my grandfather brought it to a friend of his in New York who was a guitar builder. The guy said, "This is horrible. What repairman did this? He needs to be gotten rid of." And my grandfather pulled me around from his backside and said, "My 10-year-old grandson." After that, it was Wednesday after school, Saturday from 7 to 7. I did that for about 6 months before the gentleman my grandfather knew passed away, and then his apprentice picked me up for another year and a half. And when my family moved from New York to Miami, he handed me books and said, "You ever have a question, pick up the phone and call." And that's what I've done. It's all logic. It's carpentry that most people don't understand. It's actual carpentry. Simple things like cleaning the fingerboard. When you start seeing that, if you come to me, I will teach you how to do it. I use 4/0 steel wool against the grain to get it off, because eventually what that stuff will do is we'll get into the fret slot and start lifting up the fret. Again, when you're shopping guitars, don't worry about playing it just yet. Don't worry about the action. Don't worry about any of that. Put it in your hands, put your hand around the neck at the nut, put the guitar on your body. If it feels comfortable, buy it. If it's not comfortable, don't let someone talk you into buying it just because it's so-and-so brand. The brand doesn't really mean anything, and what you have to do is go from one room, go to the next room, or go outside, have the store come out with you, go outside, wait 5 minutes and strum it. If it's still in tune, it might be a good guitar. If it's suddenly out of tune because you're in a different atmosphere, don't buy it. Always pre-plan to have your guitar set up. I charge $100 to do a setup. When I do a setup, I dress the frets. It doesn't matter whether it's a new or used guitar. I can promise you that the frets are no longer even. A guitar gets built, inspected, put in a case, put in a box, put in a warehouse, put on a truck, put on another truck, delivered, and then hung in a store. And I can promise you that the frets are no longer even. Just about every guitar that comes across my bench needs to be have the frets re-leveled. It's just the nature of the beast.
What about cases? Is
Hard
it?
shell cases are best. The reason being is when I go to a gig, I take 3 guitars.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to put them in a car. I never put my guitars in the trunk. Bodies go in trunks, people go into trunks, guitars go in the car with me. I prefer hard shell cases because they stack better.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with gig bags. Lately, gig bags, like the quality of the gig bag that you have for this is a good quality gig bag. There's another type of case called a featherweight, which is a styrofoam case encased in a gig bag.
Mm-hmm.
Much lighter. They're a little bit bulkier, but much lighter. Great cases. They run about $100, $125. They're not expensive. Again, it's all about taking care of your tools. You know, I use bone because bone is cheap and it doesn't melt in your hands. Plastic does, Tusk does. I make a bone saddle or a bone nut. It's $25. Everybody else I know is like $75. I did do a triple compensated saddle for a client. He ended up paying me $150 because it took hours and I went through several pieces of bone until he was happy. And he never understood the fact, because he had to bring the guitar back to me, that you cannot intonate perfectly, because the minute you push down on a string, you're pulling it sharp. So you must intonate flat, so that when you finger a note, it's sharp and should be right where it's supposed to be. You'll notice that everybody does the same thing, and it drives me crazy. This is how they check intonation. Listen closely, that's off. I take the 19th fret. Where is it? Because intonation is from here to the 12th fret to the bridge. That's where you got to check. So you can't be in the 1 octave. You have to get up there and do that. And you'll hear that it's right on. You know, those are the things you look for. You look for everything, and if in doubt, call somebody.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, I might say you don't need anything, but I'm not going to charge you for it. If all you need is a lousy little neck adjustment, I'm not going to charge you for it because who cares? Major work, yeah, I charge for what I do. I don't charge a lot, but I stand by and I make a requirement that you are to critique me. If your repair person isn't up to being critiqued, don't use them. You have to talk to them. But yeah, right now, as far as guitars go, I love guilds. The Chinese guilds are made really, really well, and people don't understand it. Chinese have been making stringed instruments since the 1700s. Violins, cellos, violas, upright. They do beautiful work. You know, so my 2 guitars of choice basically are Larry and Guild. Taylors are nice. You can pick up a Taylor for under $1,000. A nice guitar with a cutaway and a pickup system. I'm not fond of their pickup systems. God, there's so many brands out there. It all boils down to what you want. Like I said, once you get that comfort thing, then you strum. It's to give you a smile. If it doesn't give you a smile, as comfortable as the guitar is, it will never make you happy.
Right.
You know, but go and talk to people. Talk to other guitar players. Guitar players are more than happy to talk about their guitars and what they play. I love Yamaha. You know, this is a great guitar. I have always been a Yamaha fan. I don't think I've played I've had some cheapo Yamaha guitars, like 3/4 size dreadnoughts. Just absolutely scary playing guitars and gorgeous sounding guitars. Don't let a country of origin tell you or dictate anything. It's and don't expect every guitar to play. Same model will not play the same as the one in front of it. They're all different. They all have slight variations, and it doesn't matter whether it's cut by a computer or not. There's a slight variation. There'll be a slight variation in tone. But the main thing to remember is every guitar needs a setup. Set aside money to do that setup. It's part of buying a guitar. But before you go and have a setup done, play the guitar, take notes, so that the repairman knows what they're doing. Really enough, I like Johnsons.
Mm-hmm.
They make this little tiny Johnson, I think it's a triple O, with a solid top. And it's like, this is a cool little guitar. $199. How can you go wrong? Don't buy colors. As much as you might want to buy a green guitar, don't buy a green guitar. Green guitars never resell. Nylon string guitars are tons of nylon string guitars on the market. Don't go so inexpensive because it won't inspire you. Don't go too expensive because you might not want to stay with a nylon string guitar. You might want to move to a steel string. Again, bring somebody. Call your teacher up and say, I'm going to go look at guitars. Can you meet me there? Probably happy to meet you there because he wants you to have the right instrument to inspire you.
Right. I love that kind of stuff anyway. I love checking it out.
Well, you also get the chance to play a whole bunch of guitars. I have people who call me about guitar. Rob, I'm looking at this guitar. Okay, what can you tell me about it? Give me an hour. And I can do my research. I'll call you. I don't charge for that. But do your research. Go out and play these things. Don't trust what you hear on the computer. Computers are MP3s. MP3s are very compressed sounds. Get a chance to go play them. If you can't get a chance to go play them, do what I do. I call manufacturers all the time. I'd rather hear what the pickup sounds like over the telephone. When people ask me what pickups to buy, there are two. You call Fralin Guitar or Fralin Pickups because you can talk to one of the guys that's probably going to make your pickups. You could talk any way you want, and these guys are so good at what they do. They can decipher what you're saying to them and get you the right pickup.
I think a lot of good advice here.
And again, you can go to my website. It's RPJ Guitarworks. You can see my phone number. You pick up the phone, call. Not after 8 o'clock. Not before 10 o'clock. I need a couple of cups of coffee into me before I talk to anybody. But call me. You have a question. If I can answer it, I'm happy to answer it.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, sir.
No problem.